This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. Russia takes heavy casualties in the Donbass. The carnage caused by drunk drivers becomes a major issue. And a woman who slashed a 5-year-old's face with a knife is to serve her full jail term. But first, more from our main story. Russia wanted decisive results in the Donbass region of the Ukraine after the debacle, which was Kiev. The entire Russian army has focused all their attention and firepower to the east, and this was to be a game changer for the Russians. But their fortunes, if anything, only seem to have got worse. In the latest offensive by the Russians, they attempted to cross the Donets, a key strategic river, in an attempt to thrust deep into the Ukrainian lines. This footage shows the aftermath of that battle. When they crossed, they did not expect the devastation that rained down upon them from the skies. The result was carnage. Ukraine's Airborne Command released this video and photos of the aftermath of the battle. The Ukrainian command said its troops drowned the Russian occupiers. Britain's defense ministry added, Russia has lost significant armored elements of at least 1 battalion. This single battle is a huge loss and is a devastating blow to the Russian troops. One must consider that a Russian battalion consists of over 1,000 men, and they were decimated in a single attack. Britain's defense ministry added, conducting river crossings in a contested environment is a highly risky maneuver and speaks of the pressure the Russian commanders are under to make progress. It's hard to amplify how devastating artillery fire is when it rains down on you. And looking at these images certainly show destruction. But to try and give you a feel as to what it's like to be on the receiving end, watch this. It is quite simply devastating. And when we look at these images of the aftermath, we must have some consideration. For the Russian soldiers that died there, they were literally in a cauldron of hell. Stalin himself called the artillery the god of war. If we look closer at the images, we see a phenomenon, and it is called turret popping. This is due to the T-72, the main Russian battle tank, having an inherent flaw. Inside the crew compartment, the crew are actually sitting on the munitions. And when it struck, the entire tank blows. This footage was taken by a dash-mounted camera. What you're about to see is a T-72 getting struck. There will be a large explosion, but keep your eyes skyward, because what you'll see is that turret flying upwards. And it is not just the T-72, it is also the T-64 and the latest incarnation, the T-90. They all have this inherent problem. And this goes a long way to explain as to why so many battle tanks are abandoned. And also, with artillery raining down from the sky, why morale is at an all-time low. The number of women travelling from Cambodia to China for forced and arranged marriages has surged since 2016. Often, with forced marriages, the partners will not even speak the same language, and the women are treated little more than sex slaves and forced labour. It has to be one of the most pitiful existences someone could possibly have. Many Cambodian women in arranged marriages with Chinese men, whether consensual or not, report finding themselves in remote areas and in highly abusive relationships. China's one-child policy that was enforced between 1979 and 2015 led to sex-selective abortions by families seeking a son instead of a daughter, creating a significant gender imbalance within the country. Driven by Chinese men's search for a wife, especially in rural areas, thousands of women from Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Nepal, and North Korea are transported to China to be forced into matrimony. Some travel knowing that they are to be married, but many others are deceived. Violence, sexual abuse, and forced labor are widespread. Cambodian women and girls are coerced through various means. Some are promised a job in China. Others are told they need to get married to get a marriage certificate in order to be eligible for higher paid work. Some are even tricked and sold by their own families and abandoned to a fate that is too horrendous to contemplate. The lonely lives of these unfortunate women, trapped in a foreign land, being abused and treated as slaves, is simply heartbreaking. When the rains come, it is known that death and disease follow in its wake. The wet season triggers a variety of waterborne diseases. The Ministry of Health has issued warnings of 7 infectious diseases that could be deadly during this rainy season and will most certainly cause misery to some. The director of the Department of Infectious Diseases said this week that the most common diseases include dengue, malaria, influenza, typhoid, and even cholera. He also warned that issues could arise with leprosy, which is transmitted by rat urine. His advice was really rather simple, and that was for people to drink warm water or soup immediately after walking or travelling in the rain. He also suggested people eat fruit high in vitamin C in order to boost their immune system. The threat is very real. In 2020, there were an estimated 241 million malaria cases and 627,000 malaria deaths worldwide. And malaria is back on the rise, as the cases in 2020 are 14 million higher compared to 2019. And if you think the rise in malaria cases is worrying, then the trend with dengue fever is more of a cause for concern, as the number of dengue fever cases reported by the WHO increased 8-fold over the past 2 decades, from 500,000 cases in 2000 to over 2.4 million in 2010, and it shot up to 5.2 million in 2019, and it continues to rise. Chan Tavi, a community representative of Prek Ta Kong, said floods had been wreaking havoc in her village for the past 7 years. The people and children in the village are affected by all kinds of diseases, including dengue and scabies. She said, "I am very worried. In the past, the authorities used to distribute medicines for infectious diseases like malaria. But during the past few years, the authorities seem to have forgotten about us, and we receive nothing." The rains bring harvests and the countryside blooms, but as it does, it also marks the march of these diseases. And for many, it is not a time of renewal, but a potential of misery and even death. Many have been calling for a much more stringent enforcement of traffic laws due to what is needless deaths on the roads, with many spectacular crashes occurring daily. These incidents are all too often fueled by drunk drivers who crash and run. The problem is increasing and authorities are struggling to find a solution, and there is a rise in the number of incidents. The director of the Phnom Penh Traffic Police has said that increasing alcohol breath tests is the only solution, and agrees that the worst accidents are happening at night, as many people have died, and there has been incalculable damage to property. This week has seen many accidents occurring,
One was at 1:15 a.m. when a drunk driver crashed into a property at such a speed the car ended up embedded deep in the house, and it's only because the occupants were asleep that nobody died. In this case, the driver and the house owner failed to negotiate compensation. The police impounded his vehicle. Many would raise eyebrows, asking why this driver is not negotiating from the comfort of a prison cell. As many would perceive, driving a vehicle at such speed when drunk is not reckless, it borders on homicidal. One traffic police officer confirmed the dramatic rise in accidents, saying that the nighttime incidents are very much on the rise because COVID-19 has eased, and people are now going out to bars, clubs, and parties. The images you see in this report are a poor and pale reflection of the truth. Yes, seeing devastated cars is kind of shocking, but what lays behind these images unseen is the lives of loved ones ripped apart and utterly destroyed. And if someone came up to me and offered me money as compensation for the loss of a child, then like many, my response would be the rage, the anger, and the sorrow that only a grieving parent could know.
It is hard to believe that a mother would slash another child's face in a dispute between two children. That on its own leaves one in a state of disbelief. But it does not end there, as the reason the assailant gave for the assault simply beggars belief.
The Supreme Court yesterday upheld a 12-year sentence handed out to a woman who had slashed the face of a 5-year-old girl because she had thrown a stone at her son. The presiding judge said there will be no reduction in the 12-year sentence, and the court has ordered her to pay $50,000 in compensation. While playing, there was a quarrel between the two children. The young girl took a stone and threw it at the boy and hit him in the forehead. The jailed mother took her son to hospital for treatment and then asked for compensation, but the other parents refused to pay. Later, the young girl walked in front of the house where the stone-throwing incident had happened. It was then she was attacked. The enraged mother came out of the house with a knife in her hands and slashed the child's face. The child raised her hands in defense, and again the mother lashed out with a knife, slashing the child yet again. The assault on a small child with a kitchen knife goes beyond all reasoning. But the attacker did have a defense. She said, "My son is very handsome. He could have been a movie star." It seems she feels that the stone that was thrown by the 5-year-old girl had in some way jeopardized this boy's future as a star. Now that child's future is one without a mother, and another is scarred for life.
And now it's time to look at our sports news. The big sports news this week is Liverpool beat Chelsea on penalties to win the FA Cup. Neither full-time or extra time could separate the two. The match could have gone either way, but Liverpool had the clear advantage in the dying minutes and should have at least buried the game, as Diaz was denied by the upright with a strike at the near post, and Jota had an even better chance at the back post, but his volley also hit the woodwork. For Liverpool fans, it was tortuous. 2 rebounds in the dying moments. The dramatic win has kept alive Liverpool's quadruple hopes. Although at current, it looks like the Premier League title may well elude them. With 2 games left, they trail leaders Manchester City by 3 points. But the quadruple is a possibility, and if achieved, it would make history. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
And here it is. Just look at the weekend coming up. Both Saturday and Sunday, it's rain, it's thunder, it is storms. And as we progress through the week, it's just yet more rain, with the hint that it's just going to get worse as we head into next week. The temperatures in the early 90s, reaching 92 potentially. But the big story here is the humidity, 96%. How is that even physically possible? Because surely we're almost at the full 100%, which is swimming with orca whales.
This has been the Khmer Times News. You can contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next Saturday for your weekly roundup.